Chapter 1. Discovery. The frost clung to the trees like a shroud, encasing each branch in a crystalline embrace as the pale morning light fought its way through the fog. The Isdalen Valley, known locally as Death Valley due to its treacherous paths and tumultuous history, lay eerily quiet.
It was on this chill November morning in 1970 that a father and his daughters set forth on their routine hike.
Their boots crunched rhythmically over the gravel, a sound muted by the oppressive silence of the misty landscape. They knew these trails intimately, yet nature had a way of keeping its secrets until it wished to reveal them. As they ventured deeper into the woods, the unsettling scent of burnt remains mingled with the crisp air. Concerned, they veered off the path, drawn instinctively towards the source of the smell. That day, the forest relinquished one of its darkest secrets, the charred body of a woman, lying on a scorched bed of ash, her features barely discernible.
The scene before them was surreal, a collage of reality twisted by nightmare.
Nearby, her belongings lay, stripped, deconstructed, as though the truth of their existence had been methodically erased. Burned articles lay scattered, bottles, and remnants of a passport. Even the labels from her clothing had been excised with precision, leaving a mystery that superseded ordinary tragedy. For the man and his daughters, that Sunday hike was irrevocably transformed from a time of bonding and escape to a harbinger of questions without answers.
The authorities, quickly summoned, arrived, and the valley, so resplendent in its quiet grandeur, became a bustling epicenter of investigation.
Yet, even amid the official dom's flurry, to record, tag, and piece together, the valley held its breath, protecting its secrets in silence. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows over the fractured scene, discussions began to unfold.
Amid the debris, a cryptic note was found, riddled with codes that defied comprehension. Alongside this, fragments of different nations seemed to converge. Belgian matchboxes, Norwegian coins, fragments of Swiss origin, East German artifacts. It was a tapestry woven with strands from the cold diplomatic dance of Europe in the 1970s.
Thus began the enigma of the Isdal Woman, a mystery echoing through time, a ghostly whisper in the valley. A team of international detectives, drawn together by the allure of the unknown, assembled to delve into this intricate web.
Little did they know, the path they embarked upon would lead them into a shadowy world where identities shifted like specters, a world where clarity was a tenuous construct at the mercy of shadows.
Chapter 2. Threads of Intrigue. The days that followed were a blur of activity around Bergen. Telephones rang incessantly, punctuated by the scribbling of pens and the shuffle of papers as investigators pored over the scant evidence. The international connections suggested by her belongings demanded cooperation across borders, a task that seemed as daunting as solving the mystery itself.
Each item told a story, yet without context. They were like chapters ripped from a book, scattered and incomprehensible.
The authorities were determined to stitch them into a coherent narrative. Interpol was notified, and experts rendezvoused to examine the charred objects. But the riddle persisted. Each false lead seemed more labyrinthine than the last.
Rumors swirled through the coffee shops and homes in the shadow of the mountains. People speculated about coded messages and espionage, a possibility tantalizing in its complexity. Norway, a country known for its neutrality, found itself at the epicenter of a mystery seemingly pulled from the pages of a Cold War thriller, a genre playing out in poorly lit alleyways across Europe.
Whispers of espionage were not plucked lightly from the air. The woman had carried 6 different passports, each bearing a different nationality and identity.
Her stays in various hotels around Norway, Belgium, and even further afield, revealed a pattern not unlike a spy's clandestine dance. A dance disguised by ordinary acts among unsuspecting individuals.
Through interviews, it emerged that she was sometimes seen meeting with unknown men in these locations. This detail fueled the narrative of espionage, setting the imagination alight with tales of shadowy figures and secret handoffs.
Meanwhile, cryptographers puzzled over the seemingly random codes on her ill-fated note, each attempt at deciphering pushing them further down twisting paths rather than towards a resolution.
Despite the international reach of their search, none of the identities linked to the false passports yielded a true name or life story. Each hotel check-in was but a stop on her untraceable journey, an elusive thread in the rich tapestry of her unknown life.
With each false identity unraveled, it became evident there was something profound she was either running from or entangled in, something worth concealing at any cost.
And so, against a backdrop of wet cobblestones and mist-wreathed fjords, the puzzle pieces lay scattered at investigators' feet, enigmatic in their isolation yet alluring in their promise.
Even as it seemed the mystery deepened at every turn, a simple truth kept them pursuing its resolution. In every secret is a trace of light, and within every web of lies, the seeds of truth are sown. Chapter 3. Shadows and Silhouettes. The city of Bergen was a vibrant tapestry of life, where history painted every corner in rich hues of reality and myth, a city filled with stories old and new. Yet, amid the hustle of waterfront markets and the cadence of the harbor, the mystery of the Isdal Woman hung over like a dense fog.
Coffee shop conversations often slipped into whispers, eyes flitting to newspaper headlines that hinted at secretive pasts and invisible enemies.
As investigators sifted through leads and falsehoods, they explored the paths shed tread. Witness accounts and surveillance became crucial, adding layer upon layer to the intricate portrait still shrouded in anonymity.
Yet, each story pieced together was tinged with the indistinct blur of shadows, barely yielding a silhouette.
There was one witness, a travel agent, who recalled her fluent conversation in multiple languages, her manner polite yet guarded. Her various requests were simple: bookings here and there, journeys crisscrossing borders with the same ease as steps in a courtyard.
She moved like a wisp through time, leaving little except impressions verging on fleshless shadows.
The possibility of espionage grew weightier with every revelation, tenderness alongside the fierce grip of the clandestine.
The Cold War, a looming specter of the era, had taught the world the delicate art of concealment and deceit. It bred stories of figures hidden behind everyday masks, where the mundane served as the perfect veil for audacious endeavors.
Hotels, often a proxy for fleeting passages and retreat, became windows into this secretive fabric.
Staffers unearthed vignettes of her purchases of strange combinations of common goods, composed yet unsettlingly forgettable. Her presence lingered in their memories not as a face but as an enigma, a spirit etched in peculiarities and accentuated by a practiced disconnection from the world around her.
As leads emerged, they circled back in puzzling patterns. Telephone numbers without owners, letters that dissipated into nothingness read like an opus of secrecy. She had curated her life in enigmas, leaving behind clues that perhaps she alone understood or perhaps were never meant to be solved.
These clues led through hollow corridors, echoing a profound silence where her identity might have otherwise sung.
In this pursuit, her mystery invoked the essence of espionage films where microfilms slipped across tables and covert meetings transitioned seamlessly into oblivion.
But for all the theoretical allure, the immediate quest was grimly human. A search not only to find answers for those who had sought him out but to speak for someone else's unclaimed shadow, where once there was a woman who entrusted her secrets to the valley. Chapter 4. Whispers of Cold War. In the textured tapestry of a Europe split between ideological titans, Norway was a space of seeming neutrality within a world charged by conflict and tentative peace. The Cold War created unlikely alliances and unforeseen betrayals, propagating a culture thick with paranoia and espionage.
It was here that the Isdal Woman story found its stage, a drama set against the divide of East and West, where anyone could be anything.
Her movements across borders and acquisitions of passports revealed an expertise in maneuvering through this theater of mistrust.
Whether an agent of some clandestine network or a mercenary wielding her skills for leverage, her life mirrored the uncertainty of the era, where shadows imitated truth, and truths were tangled within the shadows.
International cooperation from law enforcement and intelligence services tiptoed around a presumed security risk.
Was the woman an actress in the spy games played across continents or a civilian swept up in a system indifferent to her innocence or guilt?
Such speculation brought no clarity, it only elongated the shadows over Europe that were already fantastically distorted.
Her cryptic note remained a focal point of investigation, hinting perhaps at clandestine happenings too complex for quick interpretation.
Cracked by cryptographers and intelligence experts, they sought intent within its codes, a deciphering akin to untying a tightly wound knot.
If it was a message awaiting reception, its distance from understanding only amplified the intrigue.
In truth, each evasion to decipher seemed intentional, a test that underscored, again and again, her proficiency at staying disguised even when discovered.
The era's secrecy paired effortlessly with the unseen threat of being compromised, a vulnerability brokers such as she necessarily inoculated themselves against.
For Europeans swept into the ebb and flow of Cold War tremors, their daily lives wore on much the same, compartmentalized away from the geopolitical tremors above them.
Markets still buzzed, conversations still unfolded over cups of steaming coffee, Yet the narrative of the Isdal Woman seeped into the collective conscious.
Her confounding existence piqued not just those tracing her steps but those that couldn't escape history's refrain. A shared notion that behind even the simplest facade may lay a story yet to be told.
In every fragment of her life, the Times spoke volumes. A clandestine language articulated through Euro-Nordic roots and clandestine rendezvous.
Here, the pursuit of identity became an allegory for the broader post-war world where individuals were often caught within overarching narratives, their personal stories weaving between truth and obscurity, in the larger dance of nation-states, espionage, and an era defined by mistrust.
Chapter 5. The Pieces Unspoken. As new snowfall embraced the Isdalen Valley, turning the forest floor into a muted canvas, the enigma of the Isdal Woman grew broader in scope.
Each day, additional fragments of information flowed in, consulted under the glass of scrutiny and supposition.
Yet, the more investigators amassed, the more they realized that it wasn't only what was present that mattered, but what was unspoken, what lay deliberately erased from the record.
First up was the unsettling attention to personal detail, evidenced by the removal of identifying labels from her clothing, an act suggestive of extreme caution or necessity.
It led them to wonder whether she anticipated her departure as part of an orchestrated end, a retreat into anonymity that shielded someone or something.
The profiles generated from eyewitness accounts painted a portrait akin to metamorphosis. A woman who subtly adapted her demeanor, adopting accents and nuances the way one might change garments.
It unduly twisted the gaze toward deception, casting light on the idea of multiple faces sharing one physical reality.
Amidst these details, the artist's sketches of her face circulated through international networks, an ode to her likeness perpetually at odds with the identities she left behind.
They confronted the public with a question that echoed distantly within the soul. Who was she when she stepped away from it all?
Responses, ranging from flashes of recognition to outright curiosity, cycled back to law enforcement, each adding to the mar copyright lang of shadows and silhouettes.
Her life pointed to a past buried beneath layers akin to rock strata, where facts often diverged under the weight of time.
With every revelation, her narrative invited assumptions, drawing investigators into what must have been a manifold life, not simply erased, but reordered, altered irretrievably amid an existence spun from paper dreams and hollow names.
In this labyrinth of enigmas, investigators faced the task of peeling back layers, imagining the soul beneath the disguise.
It was a narrative exercise akin to reconstructing an ancient art from broken shards, knowing the whole must have carried a depth of detail beyond what time had left scattered before them.
Yet it seemed, for every answer they unveiled, questions multiplied. Each avenue revisited ended at a precipice of silence, hinting at an understanding that always lingered just beyond reach.
And while societal musings reflected on her semblance and assumed identity, those drawn into her mystery felt not just the pull of unveiling an abstract truth, but an empathy for what remained elusive, a quest for a voice expelled from the narrative. Chapter 6. Echoes of Silence. Amid the investigators endeavoring to solve the puzzle of the Isdal Woman, there lingered not just the mythology of espionage but the resonance of her silence, a profound absence echoing throughout the proceedings.
Her voice, whatever tones it might have borrowed or belonged to, was a diminished whisper in the corridors of facts that spoke without words.
The code found on her person, specific combinations aligning with unpredictable patterns, continued to grab at the minds of experts and amateurs alike. Within its intricacies lay the possibility of a key, or the imagination of one.
It was an unsung language, a bridge between the person she was and the life she had known, yet abstract, defying artful revelation.
The international community invested in its unraveling, envisaging spy plots and agenda-laden intrigues as possible explanations.
But in cooperative rooms filled with chatter and information exchange, silence reverberated more convincingly than any audible exchange, building suspense from what remained silently unanswered.
Yet away from institutional pursuit, her silence took on richer dimensionality. It was an expression of choice or secrecy, a decision she patented with a silence enforced by herself or inflicted by others.
It suggested agency inexplicably converging with circumstance, constructing a life that sculpted identities selectively embellished without lasting fingerprint or footprint.
In shadowy corners and anonymous encounters scattered across Europe, the untraceable trail she left behind bore not only the weary mark of evasion but also seclusion.
This duality turned the magnifying glass inward, towards those whose lives brushed hers only at the fringes, now left to ponder encounters that resonated with absence more than presence.
In the bustling cities and quiet border towns that had comprised her passage, nuances missed at the time left only echoes within the hushed memories people retained, pertinent details residing in small interruptions or gestures omitted by design.
Her story planted ideas of an existence orbiting an enigmatic core, curtailed by the silence that remained inviolable to public procession.
It was this narrative hollow, the resounding emptiness wherein her narrative was configured, that quickened the search, pushing ever against the concrete possibilities of knowledge.
Still guided by silence, the mission remained clear: to reach through the void and hold that intangible thread, an endeavor that ever appeared not only plausible but paramount.
Chapter 7. Puzzles on the Periphery. Throughout Europe, fragments of the Isdal woman's life began to surface, hinting of an expanse of history peripheral yet perhaps pivotal to her narrative. Her steps delineated a labyrinth composed of hotel stays and border crossings, a pathway winding methodically around locales that alone held scant reason for notice. But pieced together, they crafted intrigue of a broader design.
The deciphering of this map led detectives to grasp at continuity, seeking coherence in interlinked sites and actions.
Each hotel ledger, each new country mark upon false passports was a step in probing the alliances she may have curated, a dance of latitude and longitude performed with exquisite deliberation.
In post-war Europe, a multicultural lattice stretched across constellations of Cold War enmity and dark copyright tente. Through trade hubs and quiet towns, exchanges both trivial and consequential transpired, an unseen economy of information that permitted familiar scenes to host unfamiliar consequence.
The pursuit progressed in roundabout fashion, pursuing hollows her presence filled yet also perpetuated.
It became both maddening and motivational, spurring sleuths to consider not only the where, but the what, the substance of motivations cloaked cleverly between the page and reality.
From Oslo to Paris, from Mariehamn to Geneva, her journey read like a ledger of altered states, peppered with aliases and personalities rephrased to suit the setting. Each guise stepped carefully between public eyes and whispers, vanishing into the spaces routine action typically overlooked.
Reconstructing her timeline required intrusion into myriad happenings, each sliver a potential clue within the unfathomable breadth of human interactivity.
Still, in every leap and plane ride, behind each signature and passport stamp, the sense permeated that hers hadn't been a journey alone. Whether allies or antagonists shared her bearing remained a source of intrigue.
Decision-makers pushed onward through the abstraction, acutely aware their pursuit extended beyond facts alone.
They bore within their commitment the responsibility to discover, to act as proxies to a history severed in sequence yet potentially intact in import, to serve, if not justice, then at least closure to the lives spared only her enigma.
Chapter 8. Dance of Disguises. Journeying deeper into the puzzle led detectives into the art of disguise, the varied personas expertly assumed by the Isdal woman. Her shape-shifting across borders was a testament to her expertise, a praxis refined through experiences unknown but assuredly complex.
Within these layers of artifice lay potential truths woven through mimicry and mastery.
Onlookers, investigators and witnesses alike observed how efficacy resided not only in identity manipulation, but in her ability to defy detection through simplicity. An association gained only minimal attention if enacted naturally, slipping through familiar scenes without tilting the fragile balance of anonymity.
Each passport held its story. For every nation adopted and abandoned, there formed a spectrum of escapes and entries, where her identity danced in the shadow of performance, a continuum unbroken by formal identification, yet perpetual in existence.
She read her part from pages invisible to those merely watching.
Reports from hoteliers, flight attendants, and border agents contributed rich detail. Her features, though explicitly undeniable upon examination, had folded easily into backgrounds wherever transient lives accumulated, a face made deliberately mutable by intent but not impenetrably anonymous.
In cosmopolitan locales and quiet backwaters both, she bore the attributes of perpetual transience. Each moment of removal and insertion, a performance that bore neither empty mimicry nor stale effort, rather, an ease of persona, an unmatched adaptability taking advantage of a world constantly in motion.
Her accommodations, though unexceptional, were chosen with an architect's regard for line and space, always within bounds, always practical.
From thriving cities to modest hotels, her life played out against a backdrop set by proximity to both substance and escape.
It became plain her skill seemed born both of learned and inherent depth, her purposes unfurling amidst repetitive practice.
Her layers both enraptured and remained enigmas, crafted to hold realities both expeditious yet untethered by detail.
For inside the artifice, her truth lingered, faint, alluring, carefully orchestrated to dance along its edges without stepping fully into the realm of understanding.
Chapter 9. Roads and Revelations. As investigators combed through the myriad details of the Isdal Woman's journey, they stumbled upon a road less traveled, a path that took them into summerhouses tucked amid Norwegian woods and bustling streets of foreign capitals.
A line mysteriously stretched across borders, the corded thread tying together events and encounters too curated for chance alone.
Between these lines grew an understanding, not of purpose or conclusion, but of presence. A compass demarcating neither north nor south, but perhaps intention, as though her life cycle tiptoed gracefully along threads of obligation and exploration.
Her navigations suggested bridges to narratives unheard, echoing across timelines stretching into parallel, distant places.
Hidden within pockets of calm awaited individuals once fringes to her course. Watchful eyes half buried amid ordinary settings unveiled that her movements conveyed rhythm amid chaos, a symphony composed of parting glances and fleeting exchanges.
Each bearing witness aided the thread, crafting paths slowly out of coreless obscurity.
Her notes, carved upon maps revealing little at first glance, lengthened into structured comprehension over time. They appeared as disconnected steps within a broader calligraphy, offering potential only discerned by earnest pursuit.
Her existence unwound across paths of varying distance yet undeniable cadence, her footprint marked by unease amid ordinary happenings.
Intrigued, investigators pulled on these strands, keen to define their crux, drawing history together with tremulous uncertainty.
Beyond the reams of coded messages and falsified entries on passport pages, they sought the connective tissue of a face known only in representation, of a voice thinned by abstraction.
The ground lithographed beneath her appeared uneven, folded between cryptic meetings and navigator stops, mapped yet unmapped across Europe.
Her treasure trove of deception and lure offered echoes to chronicle, a vivid depiction of activity glimmering from corridors seldom illuminating full revelation.
At the margins of their pursuit, the investigative team realized she harnessed not only disguises, but possibilities inherent within mundane frameworks, threading continuity across strata of independence and obligation.
However, she saw herself in moments either pivotal or cyclic. The scribes following found themselves entangled in roads cohabiting beauty and enigma, a tale embodying secrets not always forlorn yet perpetually profound.
Chapter 10. Allies of the Past. In piecing together the enigma of the Isdal Woman, a curious aspect of her journey emerged, the presence of allies at the fringe, subtle figures participating in passing connection or deliberate collusion.
As new pieces of the puzzle slotted into place, connections hinted at ghosts sharing her sphere, contributing to the narrative's complexity.
Throughout her traversals, anomalies suggested interplay with individuals unnoticed amid the bustling pace of itinerant lives, a network perhaps vast yet elusive, woven from single moments of trust tested over time.
Here, in whispers exchanged across twilight tables and shadows crossing boundaries, lay the potential for allegiance both authentic and feigned.
From bars in Germany to quaint guesthouses on Scandinavian shores, ghosts of encounters painted a vibrant picture.
Outlying figures glimpsed only through disassembled truth tied not only location but expectation. Individuals' certain connections bore currency only realized when briefly exposed to daylight.
This aspect of her tense reality forced reconsideration. Was she a lone protagonist, or a player amid unseen drama?
Every script offered unexplored avenues. Concealed ease and betrayal appeared inverse to alliance, suggesting greater potential for cooperative drives and secrets held softly in reserve.
In the world bound by secrecy and duplicity, moments perceived as innocuous manifested as significant.
Whether true allies or cautionary challenges bore presence along her route, each communication fold hinted at shared undertakings, momentary breaches of self-incurred solitude allied alongside the guise of silence.
Such introductions within narrative thwarted linear explanation, as scenes rewrote with every new encounter uncovered, understanding swayed between allegiance and independence.
If collaborators existed, whether by mutual purpose or transactional convenience, the anticipation lulled detectives into acceptance it wasn't coincidence steering her course.
As the cold Norwegian breeze rustled brittle leaves, memories settled back into obscured veins lining tranquil pathways.
Those peripheral to the investigative team resided amidst lattices of languid mystery.
For whether conscious manipulation or serendipitous coalition constructed their gathering, each figure formed whispers curving through her complicated trajectory, a cadence muted but perpetually true.
Chapter 11. Shards of Identity. As the investigation progressed, each revelation became a testament to the Isdal Woman's capacity for reinvention, a series of mirrored aspects each reflecting varied identities, each similar yet profoundly unique.
The closer detectives sought proximity to her essence, the clearer it became that identity itself comprised layers erratically fused to form an impenetrable whole.
Her chosen disguises evoked more than appearances. They manufactured an emotional autonomy, a spectrum detached from singular realities.
The artifice was woven perfunctorily yet perfectly, details synchronized with practiced indifference, assuming personas dictated by necessity and garbed within the face of fluid adaptability.
Reports ranging from personality quirks to clothing preferences aligned with subtly modulated perception, intentionally executed to afford distance between the true self and portrayed characters.
Observers remarked her demeanor coolly calculated, expressions of performance of assumed emotions draped lightly across dialogic intonation.
Her belongings told tales framed via paradoxical alliance, a nexus of accessories offering contradiction amid false coherence.
Once obtained, each closely examined object contributed another perspective. Worn necklaces, marked papers, coded instruments framing existence through unexpected cohabitation.
This juxtaposition presented contrasts compelling in their capacity to echo autonomy within constraint.
As trails of feigned existence intersected under meticulous interpolation, fragmented imposition emerged and bodies of light gathered along sequential edges.
Each inferred speculation concerning intent revealed thin threads masquerading across multiple veils, painting indistinct reflections built agilely upon scaffolded veracity and misinformation.
Within this labyrinthine identity, a certain beauty emerged, an existence contained yet unconstrained by ordinary empirical bounds.
The trade necessary for temporal freedom embraced limitations, creating ruptures still intact enough to garner enigma powerful in its perpetuation.
The witnesses, emerging from disbelief toward interaction, found narrative reframed as not simply one but many, lives viewed in parallel sequences overlapping intermittently across shared spaces.
Obfuscated in character, she became renowned individually for delivering presence amidst impermanence. Shattered passages designed to maintain endless construction, formed across the thresholds and transcending boundaries.
Chapter 12. Rest in Mystery. As winter's grip tightened across Norway, the investigation converged around evidence now layered meticulously, each piece juxtaposed beside the next, yet context urged neither resolve nor concretization.
The Isdal Woman, as she was destined to remain, endured as an eloquent testament not to answers but to the questions humanity thrust upon her legacy.
Her narrative, woven both temporally and intangibly across pages weighted with speculation, dissolved ironically into fabric dense with understanding woven without further anticipation of completeness.
Amidst whispers of espionage and obscured allegiances, her essence became emblematic, held in suspension on deference and conjecture.
Thoughts of agents positioned upon espionage's tenuous borders or figures cast adrift upon fate's divergent pathways ceased to hold sway. The enigma she embodied questioned structural dogma and interpretations born via singular lenses.
Instead, she found narrative sculpted to challenge formulas applied to layered regions of marginal experience.
Those immersed in the case, following extensive months traversing evocative junctions, counterbalanced the urge for definitive endings with an acknowledgement that perhaps no ending secured an ultimate reflection, yet still vindicated their pursuit of a lasting truth.
Her existence defied conclusions, residing instead within their necessity for exploration.
For Bergen's citizens and those seeking truth beyond headlines, her memory softened, no longer merely a form upon the pyre's echo, but an evolving lexicon engaged from points afar. A testament living within the spheres of questions both presuppositioned and inherent.
Her life resonated beyond immediate tragedy, serving the dual purpose of intriguing discourse or sorrowful recollection.
Ephemeral steps tracked across borders converged back upon the valley slowed by its winter blanket, a journey neither lost nor final, but enshrined within the folds of unique colors only known amidst shared dreams and recognized silences.
Her truth drew forth abstractions binding through persistent longing, a realm fulfilled through each conscious deliberation responding to her tale.
The Isdal Woman, an enigma on slopes distant yet pervasive, transformed intrigue into a somber narrative quietly voiced underneath the relentless expansion of understanding, finding solace amid the swirling dominion she unknowingly influenced.
Her legacy rests not in singular recounting obtained in closure but as an eternal capture of mystery, grasped yet free, encased timelessly. A story reflected endlessly into the human heart's endless thirst.